I just finished playing Inside by Playdead, and it has me thinking a lot about character motivation. More specifically, how my assumption of what motivated the main character was drastically different from what actually did. Over the span of just a few minutes, my perception of him shifted immensely, and it wasn't because he grew as a character, but rather that I began to understand him and his intentions better. Throughout the majority of the game, I assumed that the boy simply wanted to survive, and he'd do this by escaping from the terrifying dystopian society where almost everything wants him dead. But near the end, as the boy moves through the research facility and comes face to face with the giant blob of flesh and limbs connected to plugs that bear a strong resemblance to the mind control helmets used earlier, part of his actual purpose became clear to me. He's been trying to get to the blob the whole time, traveling all the way to what feels like this society's center of operations, finding a way inside of the blob's tank, and taking off the cords attached to it aren't accidents. They're what the character intended to do from the start. Now, I'm not going to claim to be completely certain of the boy's motivations, because I'm not, but based on what's presented, the blob seems to have control over a large portion of the population, and either the boy is trying to disconnect it to take away its hold over the world, or the blob is controlling the boy the entire time in order to free itself. Due to the secret ending that shows the boy unplugging what looks like a computer terminal wired to a mind control device, and then folding into the same position that the human husks do when they aren't being controlled, it's most likely the latter. And this threw me for a loop, because I was so convinced that the boy wanted to get away, but in reality, he didn't. Now, this kind of twist isn't revolutionary, and it's been explored in all types of media. One of the most notable examples of it in a video game, and the one I keep coming back to when thinking about Inside, is BioShock, with the reveal that Atlas, who acts as a guide to the main character throughout the majority of the game, is actually controlling him with the trigger phrase, "Would you kindly?"
Would you kindly get this? Would you kindly find that? Would you kindly find that? Would you kindly find? Would you kindly get this? Would you kindly head to Ryan's office and kill the son of a bitch?
This acts as a sort of meta-commentary about player control and following a game's instructions blindly, and Inside treads a lot of the same ground. But what sets it apart from BioShock and other similar examples is how it establishes its twist. See, BioShock explicitly lies to the player. Atlas manipulates the main character and sets objectives for him to complete, which in turn manipulates the player into thinking that this is the right thing to do. But Inside doesn't really lie to the player. It doesn't even set an actual objective, it only implies one. Inside's absence of dialogue makes it a story told entirely through movement. So the action that takes place in the first 10 minutes established my expectations for the rest of the game. This starts with the boy clambering down a small cliff in the middle of a forest and sneaking up to a truck loaded with people. On my first playthrough, I assumed that the boy somehow managed to avoid being rounded up and now wanted to get as far away from the threat as possible. The rest of this section being filled with strange figures wearing masks, relentlessly chasing the kid, only served to reinforce this idea. In order to motivate players, it exploits one of the most primal and powerful emotions: fear. Every close call, every moment spent hidden behind something, and even every gruesome way that the boy can die pushed me to solely focus on surviving. And because of this, I assumed the boy shared the same focus. After he becomes a part of the blob, I realized that I misread the introduction entirely. In this section and the game as a whole, the kid moves with purpose and confidence that goes beyond how a person simply trying to survive would act. When I look back at the first scene, I realized that he isn't trying to hide from the truck, he's trying to follow it. I held on to this feeling that the kid wanted to get away from the weird authoritarian government that's controlling everything. But the game starts in an extremely remote location, and the character only moves closer and closer to civilization and the center of it all. Despite all these warning signs, I never wondered what I was doing when playing because I thought I knew. I certainly had questions about the world, but I didn't have all that many about the character himself because he clearly had purpose. I just didn't actually know what that purpose was. I admire the subtlety of this kind of storytelling. It plays with and understands the assumptions that players will make, but it doesn't do it explicitly, and it allows players to have different interpretations of the main character's motivation. Instead of feeling like a passive audience member, I felt involved in the story being crafted, and I think that's something a lot of people want to feel when playing games. This isn't the first time something like this has been done before, but regardless, I'm impressed by how well Playdead manipulated the way I viewed the main character and the game as a whole with movement.